Thanks. I got a kid for you. But I'll add you to his list. He'll show up.
Good timing.
Yeah, here we go.
Okay, good evening. The time is now 5 p.m. and at this time I'd like to call the May 6, 2025 scheduled work session to order. Statement of board mission the last time it's in.
And excuse me, my voice is kind of gone right now, but the statement of board mission, by working together, Spencer County School District will make a difference in the lives of all students. Then the vision statement is Spencer County Schools will challenge and support all students to become highly effective individuals. And before we begin, I was just going to say the gifts that you all have, those are from me. It's just a little note and a little picture of us all, just to thank you all for your time and
There you go.
just a little appreciation. That, and we had our trip to Cedar Point, and while we were at Cedar Point, it was raining and it was really cold, so it got me a little bit, but that's
There you
okay.
go.
It's okay.
I
you.
suggest you don't read the note until after the meeting.
Yeah.
I read on the board and it was a mistake. It was very sweet, thank you. We have enjoyed having you so much on the board, and we appreciate the voice of the student that you brought.
Thank you.
Welcome to all visitors. It's always happy to see some visitors here. And if anybody wants to speak, you sign the paper and give it to me or to Michelle. And you can speak during citizens and delegations. Review and adopt agenda. Is there a motion to approve the May 6, 2025 scheduled work session agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion as presented.
Lynn, do I have a second?
Second.
Tim, all in favor? Unanimous? No citizens delegations. So let's move on to presentation. Anita.
We have an agenda full of presentations tonight. Excited to start with our academic team. So traditionally, Ms. Butler has been a lone ranger and will present our map data about 3 times a year. And this time I asked that our team of folks that support academics present to you in somewhat of a year-in review style. So they're going to join us at the table, talk about data,
Thank you.
and a list of other things. So I present to you Ms. Butler, our Chief Academic Officer, Ms. Mandy Howie, our Director of State and Federal Programs, Mr. Todd Russell, Director of Diverse Learning, and Ms. Leslie Slaughter, Director of Transition, Workforce, and Innovation.
Or Team Awesome. You call it whatever you want.
Well.
Well,
Make sure we get that.
that's right. Welcome, guys. Good to see you. As Dr. Foster said, we wanted to kind of just give a wrap up of kind of our world for you all, and just thought the 4 of us could do that together in a nice, concise way and keep things kind of together and short for you. So I'm going to start just kind of with an overview. So I'm going to cover just kind of proficiency from MAP, insert some information that way that we have, and then talk some about the manuals and things that we're going to be finishing up this summer that we'll be bringing to you just as school's starting. Mr. Russell's going to follow me with some of his diverse education and some things there that he's going to share data, old data and new data with you, how the year ended up. And then Ms. Slaughter's going to talk about her post-secondary readiness and some of our transition data that we started looking at this year in her new position. And then Ms. Howie's going to finish up with some MTSS. It's part of many of our jobs that kind of overlap there. So she's going to share a bit about that. So first, for my part of the academics, just to let you guys know, KSA testing has started. That is every kid 3 through 8. And then our 10th and 11th graders have started this week, and someone is testing basically every day starting yesterday through next Friday. So we are going to be busy testing, and then the last week of school we'll probably have some makeups. Some of the schools are trying to get makeups made up as soon as possible. That way that last week of school can be for the last week of school and fun things. So they're working very hard at that. So far, I'm going to knock on, I don't have any wood here, but if you do somewhere, testing has gone very well, very efficiently. Technology's been great. Our technology people have been at every school. We've had minimal issues, so we're hoping to just continue that way. It's been wonderful. ACT testing for our juniors was in March. We had a lot of kids test. We had some sophomores test at that time and some seniors. We even had some 8th graders testing at that time. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about MAP data. So MAP gives us all kinds of different data. And so they also give us projected proficiency on the upcoming KSA. So that's the data I'm going to share with you first. So first you'll see elementary school math and reading. So if you like pie graphs and just kind of looking graph wise there, you can see a majority of our kids are proficient. So we'll have over 50% proficient distinguished math and reading. And again, remember, this is just projected from the spring KSA testing. So you can see those there. It also breaks down each grade level and kind of where kids are projected to fall as well for math and reading. Then our next slide is Taylorsville Elementary, broken up the same way for you. Slightly less than 50% proficient distinguished in math, but that is a growth for TES. And it looks like right at maybe a little bit more than 50% proficient distinguished in reading for TES. Again, a growth there. So that's exciting and hoping that KSA lends to that and is a good projector. Then middle school, you can see middle school is going to be less than 50% for math as projected, but over 50% proficient distinguished for reading based on that spring KSA data. Again, broken down by grade level for you, so you can kind of see about where they're expecting each kid based off that test. Now remember, it's based off that test. It's not based off of all three and projected growth for the year. It's just based off that one test. But it is projected, and we find that it's pretty close. So I'm anxious to see. That's where I'm starting to go back now, is look at previous data to see how close it is. Some of our schools do that better than others, but I want to do that as for us district-wide. So, but just wanted to give you guys that data. As far as the high school goes, remember they take CERT, which is aligned to the ACT. One conversation that we are having right now, Dr. Foster and Leslie and Mr. Phillips right now, is that freshman test, that 9th grade test, is technically a pre-ACT. It doesn't really give us data to use either way. So we can't really compare it to MAP that they took in previous years. And they've all taken it the whole time they've been here in previous years. And it's really not totally relatable to the ACT cert that they're going to take their sophomore and junior years. So it's kind of a hard test to read for data. So we've kind of talked about some things that we can do maybe from here on out to see if maybe we could get more compatible data with either have them take MAP again, or maybe have them take the sophomore cert so that they are taking that, so we have some data to look at. Because it's hard when you're a freshman, you're like, oh, look, I got an 18, and then a sophomore, you're back down to 15. You're like, wait a second. So, it's kind of hard to look at that data for trend and for growth. So that's something we're just kind of discussing right now. You'll see for 10th grade there, and really both grade levels, our English is pretty high. Our math is kind of low. That's something that we're definitely looking at. And then science for those 10th graders is really low. So again, some things that we're going to take this data and really look back. Our big push for next year is just good, strong tier 1 education across the board. And so we have some places to really hone in on. And I think CERT's going to be a really good place for us to look at specific standards and where is it that we need to really pick up. On that last page for me, that is so Dr. Foster and Mr. Phillips had talked. It really didn't make a whole lot of sense to have our juniors take the ACT essentially 4 times in a year. So we decided to let that spring ACT count for their 3rd ACT. So what I have for you there is their winter cert data, and then their spring ACT data. So you can kind of see a little bit how it compares. Now, ACT only gives us that mean. It doesn't give us the breakdown that CERT does as far as like being above or below benchmark or at. It just gives us that average score. But you can see pretty much across the board, it's higher. The ACT score was higher than the winter cert. So we can see growth within that. And then finally, my last slide for you all. Just kind of reminder, I feel like I've mentioned it in pockets here and there. We are working on an MTSS manual. That's going to be all things MTSS that Ms. Howie is going to cover for you tonight. But that's something that, the more we kind of talk to people that are working in the schools and we're bringing administrators and people together. Consistency is really what people are asking for. So we're creating these manuals like the MTSS manual so we have consistency across the district, whether that's how we look at behavior or attendance or RTI or tier 1 instruction. We want that to be seamless and consistent across the district. We think that's just going to make us stronger since we are so small. We can all be working on the same templates, the same vocabulary, have the same type of benchmarks, and we feel like this is going to be a great way to get us there. So MTSS manual team wrapped up this spring. Now, Ms. Howie and I are going to be kind of just putting it all together into a manual for you this summer. We also have our district-wide PLC handbook. I'm really, really excited about the PLC handbook. We've really dug in and gotten serious about doing PLCs the right way and using student data, not just for tier 1, but also tier 2 and taking into tier 3. So that one's wrapping up as well. We just presented that in DILT and kind of went page by page and just kind of had teachers, other admin who haven't been included, just other people kind of give feedback and just to make it stronger and better. And we're feeling really good about that right now. And then again, our roadmap to educational success, that's wrapping up pretty soon. So that should be done this summer. That's going to be kind of a site that just kind of has links to all things that we do as far as education goes in Spencer County. So all things will be kind of linked there and as a hub. It's a lot of information, a lot of words. Any questions for me before I pass it on to?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
As you review this information, what would you say? Give me a couple of high points and a couple of low points.
Oh man, put me on the spot.
Or-
So I can kind of wrap them up together. We know right now that tier 1 is where we have to focus. I think, especially coming off COVID, Dr. Foster and I talk a lot about like, we can use that as an excuse for so long, but at some point we need to dig in and we've got to get serious about tier 1. And I think a lot of times when you're in the classroom, tier 1s kind of take it for granted. You think there's a teacher in there, so tier 1's going to be strong. So we need to really look at supporting for tier 2 and tier 3 when really we're looking at things and where we should be going. And our tier 1 just isn't as strong as it needs to be. And that's really where I think we're really doubling down with those HQIRs, getting good instruction in the hands of teachers, regardless if it's their first year or their 32nd year in the classroom. Just that equity across the board, whether it's an ECE student, a GT student, just your average Joe in the middle student where I was, like we're all getting good just instruction tier 1. And then we can kind of go behind and figure out how does tier 2 support? How do we really support those kids in tier 2? So we're lessening the amount of tier 3 and then lessening amount that goes into ECE. So really, I think us getting our minds wrapped around the right thing and saying, regardless of who's in your classroom or who you are as far as experience, we've got a lot of great teachers in this district. First year teachers all the way to very experienced. We also have some very stubborn teachers who are saying, I've taught this way for 25 years. I refuse to change. That's okay. Your experience means something, but this is something we have to do for every kid in the district, regardless of who you are, because that's what's best for kids. So that's kind of where we are, just digging in, looking at math HQIRs, the science, the high school is digging into math HQIRs and science. So we're really just kind of figuring out pockets. It's also a huge lift for teachers to do that. So we're trying to figure out how can we compensate and also push teachers to grow, because we all want to be empowered learners. We all hope to be empowered learners. If a teacher doesn't want to learn for the rest of their life, how are they going to get kids to want to do that? So it's really kind of pushing and offering experiences to teachers that want to grow and do better as well. So that's with the letters stuff and the modern classrooms and getting HQRs and getting the word out about some adult growth. And leading on our principals and our instructional coaches about this is where we need to focus. Tier 1 has to be our number one focus. And I think that's where the lows are. We can see holes in tier 1, but we also know that because of that, where we have had some great tier 1, we're seeing growth there. So we know that is working, and that's where we can push. That's where PLC is going to come in. That's where MTS is going to come in. And that's just a system to kind of build up tier 1 and make it grow. So I think we have the systems there. It's just kind of getting everybody on board and creating that it's a we. They're not my kids. they're not Miss Slaughter's kids, they're our kids, and how can we all use them to grow? And that's just something we're trying to get into the mentality of every school and every teacher. So I know that's kind of a roundabout way of saying, like, I think our growths are our strengths and our strengths are where we need to grow, if that makes sense. So without getting like specific data, but that's like, I feel like looking at this data, it's like, okay, it's showing where we need to strong tier 1 is where our holes are. And now we have even more specific data to say high school math, what's going on? You know what I mean? High school science, what's going on? 6th grade math and reading, what's, you know, like we can have specific data to say, okay, now we see specific holes. We can really just give our attention there. I hope that answers your question.
Yes.
So
Okay.
let me brag on a few of those individuals. So I think if you looked at Taylorsville, and I'm gonna use math specifically, the fact that Ms. Butler mentioned, you know, when you look at 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade, almost every grade, if you combine their proficiency and their distinguished, you're gonna be at, near, or above 50%, which would be a huge win for Taylorsville.
Yes.
So very proud of that staff for digging in. Spencer County Elementary, I think their story has been, they are digging into growth. Their achievement level has been strong, but they're now kid by kid, making sure that every kid, whether they're wherever they are, that they're growing and that their teaching has an impact, which is pretty impressive. Spencer County Middle School, 8th grade math, took their lumps last year. So when you look at that group right now, you know, almost 58% proficient or distinguished. Like that 8th grade group grew leaps and bounds this school year, which is amazing. The high school, the CERT translate to ACT. Do kids take one or the other more seriously? If you look at winter CERT, when we looked at juniors, so there are 4 scores there, that bottom line in black, average score 16, 17, 16, 16, and then you go down to the box below it, the mean on the real deal, the real McCoy, ACT, all juniors, they outperform CERT plus 1.3, plus 0.3, plus 2.9. You know, those are nice things where the CERT is obviously helping those kids. Now, we've got to grow more in ACT, but, you know, so there's just lots of little points that we can point and brag on. The thing about MAP, it right now is predictive. So what they're doing this week and next week is what counts. And so, you know, this was a little plus or minus spring break, depending upon the school and when they took it. So does that translate to KSA? That's what we're finding out.
And I will say too, to that point, because we had so many snow, sick, there was just so much in the spring semester that we just lost instructional time. A lot of the schools chose to wait. Like TES chose, I don't even think they tested the week after spring break. I think they waited till the week after that, which was going to be really test heavy on their kids with state testing coming up, but they felt like it was only fair to them. Like, why give them a test if they don't have those same instructional days? So like some of them, like you're going to see higher growth because those kids just had more instruction than they typically do. So all of those are kind of factors in that as well. Okay. Mr. Russell's up.
All right. Diverse learning or diverse education, whichever one you want to call it. I think you have 2 different packets there. You have one that has the slide that has the up-to-date, or some of the most up-to-date data that I'm going to go over with the programs I oversee. And then the second one, Ms. Butler handed out, has an infographic that I created. A lot of this on the infographic is stuff that I went over in my presentation in December. But I am going to kind of go back and forth a little bit. So first up, exceptional child education. Those are our special education students. You can see our current numbers there and divided by school. The most recent data that I have to share with you all there is the ACT results from our ECE students. And so those were 30 juniors that took the ACT. You can look at the average there, it was 14.83. The biggest thing for us was that range. We had, you know, kids score up to 29, but a kid score as low as 10. So basically, you know, obviously we want that to improve, and that kind of goes into the goals that I've laid out in the infographic there. And, you know, some of those are to improve student outcomes through co-teaching and individualized support. Obviously, that's what we want to do in special education every day, all day. And then the second thing is something that we created this year, and that is our ECE PLCs. We created those at each school level, and that is basically pulling all of our special education teachers together at each school and really, this year was kind of that transition year from having nothing to starting something. Next year, basically, we want those to be big time data driven, big time student oriented. And so that's going to be real important, and that's going to be important to watch as we get those going next year as how our data grows. You know, one of our biggest successes in special education throughout the years is how our students perform on the KSA test. You know, our ECE students, when you compare us to other districts' ECE students, we outperform them majority of the time, year after year. And that's kind of the part of the data that I have shown you every December since I have been doing that presentation. But the ECE PLCs, I think, are going to be huge for us next year as we really dive deep into the data and really make those student oriented. So that's the ECE side of things. Gifted and talented education has really grown this year. You can see the numbers there. One of the biggest things in the gifted and talented world that I'm proud of is our primary talent pool. Gifted and talented education is basically 4th grade through 12th grade. Kids qualify at the end of their 3rd grade year, and then they can qualify all the way up through 12th grade. However, kindergarten through 3rd grade, we have what is called the primary talent pool. And that is basically teacher recommendation, parent recommendation, other forms of evidence in which those kids can qualify, not for gifted and talented education. They're not GT yet. However, we're putting them in a talent pool to really pull that out, really to give them that enrichment to make them blossom. And so this was the first year that we've had that primary talent pool in I don't know how many years, just because we've had the proper staffing, we've had the ability to do it, the time to do it, we put it in our schedule. And so I'm really proud of that. And I'm really proud of the enrichment opportunities that our GT kids have gotten this year, which has also been huge. You can see here our latest testing results for the GT world is that 3rd grade, end of 3rd grade testing, in which we have to have 2 forms of data for that student to qualify for GT as a 4th grader. And so basically, some of it can be map data, some of it can be what's called the Raven, which we give to them. We had, and you can broken down by school there. TES has 11 qualifiers. Spencer County Elementary has 8. Those potential kids means that they have qualified in one, but not the other. And so what we're trying to do is trying to find another form of data in order to get them to qualify. So that will be ongoing. And then also, I didn't put it on here, but we test kids in other grades, like 7th grade is social studies. And then obviously there's more and more and more. GT, like the GT world right now, that's all they're doing right now is testing. And obviously with KSA going on at the same time, the month of May becomes insane for them.
Todd,
Yes.
do you have ECE children in your GT program?
We sure do. Those would be our dual exceptional kids, yes.
That's the correct answer.
We do, we sure do. We have kids that may qualify in special education for who knows what, but also qualify in GT for maybe creative thinking, maybe leadership, maybe general intelligence. And again, I do want to point this out for GT also. I'm proud of this also. Next year, we're really going to get big into the arts. We have not had a GT arts program for a long time. So that is our big push for next year, is really to get that out there. It's going to, we've already got a plan in which students are going to be able to create portfolios and get those judged. So that'll be big also. English language learners, ELL. This one I want to kind of go through. Basically, I'm going to go through bullet for bullet. 33 ELL students, which is pretty low. We had 3 students that went to homeschool this year, and that, just to be straight up and honest, is based upon the political climate that we live in. We have 3 ELL students that are going to graduate, and then every year we give them what's called the access test, and it tests them in 4 different areas. They have to get a 4.5 out of 6 in all 4 areas in order to exit from ELL services. So we had 3 total that passed that. One of those is going to graduate, and then we had 2 others. Here's the big thing with ELL. Right now, we're scheduled to only have 28 ELL students to start the school year. For the past 5 years, that had been in the 40s. And it's kind of like I tell my ELL staff, you can almost work your way out of a job if you don't have kids moving into your county. And so right now, with the way things are on the outside, we really don't have a lot of kids coming into the county. And then I kind of went over the access test there. Like I said, 4.5 out of 6 in all areas means you exit ELL services. 3.5 to 4.4 means that the student gets less support. So that is kind of my world, 3 of my worlds, I should say. I did not go over the 504 plans. However, that is on the infographic. And then you'll get another one of my worlds after this presentation. So any questions?
Okay, I'm up next. All right, so I spent some time with you in February and gave you a pretty good pulse check of where things were in my world, or worlds, as Todd says. So these are some updates as well as just some visioning. I'm kind of teeing some things up, I think, as well for the fall, and hopefully can spend some time with you as we start to really flesh out more of what the look-fors and the transition metrics are going to be as we think more vertically about that work. So K through 12, it's really important that we think about the successful transition of our kids at those critical grades, right? So from pre-K to K, from 5th grade to 6th grade, from 8th grade to 9th, and then what I say from 12th to life, right? Whatever happens when they leave us. So, the pre-K to K is a piece that really is going to require some extensive work. We know the Brigance screener is one look, but there's a whole lot more that we're going to have to flesh out through our strategic planning process to really think through what the right look-fors are to know whether those students are really set up for success in their K-5 experience. So I am giving you a snapshot of growth on that for our 5th and 8th graders, which is what I've dug into a little bit recently. And the really exciting news is that there is growth in both reading and math at both grade levels. And I would say some pretty decent growth. It's definitely, I think, a point to celebrate. Most excitingly, as you look at them transitioning to that next grade level, so 6th grade and 9th grade, when you look at a mean, or average score of what we're looking for in those grades in each of those subjects, you also see that our trajectory coming into those grades is actually already meeting or exceeding where we would want an average score to be. So again, I think this is some really promising data academically, but we are going to start to, again, look at additional metrics, like obviously KSA is going to be a piece of that. Our defenses at grades 5 and 8 will be a critical piece of that. So there's more to flesh out here. This is really just to tee us up for a fall conversation, as far as where we are right now and then where these kids are once they transition to that next grade band. So on the post-secondary readiness side, that is a piece of this work that has been pretty concretely defined by the state and by us for a long time. So Dr. Foster asks me daily, if not weekly, where we are with our post-secondary readiness rates. And I'm really proud to tell you that we are, for the class of 2025, sitting at 94%. We are down to 14 students in this class that have not shown readiness in at least one way, one indicator. So remember, there are buckets of indicators in that world. So we have some academic readiness measures like college entrance exam scores, placement exam scores, dual credit, AP passing scores. On the career side, we're looking at CTE dual credit coursework. We're looking at industry certifications. We're looking at those end of program pathway assessments. So lots of ways for students to demonstrate readiness in this world. And what's really exciting is that over half of our class has actually demonstrated readiness on both sides within both buckets. So 56% or 143 kids in this class have shown that they're ready both academically and career-wise, which is really exciting. You can see how that breaks down between the academic side and the career side alone. So a couple of just statistics as we kind of look forward to next year as well. You've already mentioned the ACT composite of an 18. That is down a few tenths of a point from last year's class. And I think the high school is feeling that. So, but again, as Dr. Foster said, I think there's some promising growth that we've seen in that class as well. So while it probably wasn't the average composite we were hoping for, I think we are seeing growth in some areas with that particular class. Our end of program assessment window is in March, and that's an annual assessment window. Again, those are the assessments they take at the end of their career pathway, or at least once they're halfway through their pathway, they're eligible to take the test. Most wait until their senior year to do that, but they don't have to. We had a 59% pass rate on that. I think there was around 134, I think, that passed those exams in their respective pathways. Which is really exciting because every single one of those passing scores equates to articulated college credit at least one of our public or private post-secondary institutions. And in some cases, there's more than one place that they can carry that credit with them. So that is a combination of scores from both the junior and senior class. So some will walk out the door with that in a few weeks and others will carry it with them into their senior year. And then we are still counting because we are literally still giving some industry certification exams as late as next week, but we are already at 260 industry certifications that have been awarded this school year to our high school kids, which is incredible. And I think it's a record number. So really, really excited about that because those translate to being highly employable. Some of them have college credit tied to them as well. So again, just really promising data here as we think about our students being set up for that next step and next phase of their education and career journey, whatever that is. So I'll entertain questions or we can save them for the end.
I know that Dr. Shelburne can recall discussions that we had several years ago about not feeling students were really prepared
Right,
to leave.
right.
And even with the ACT scores not where we want them, I feel very encouraged, and especially after listening to some of the defenses that we had, and that I still believe we are, this doesn't sound right, we're more ready than we have been in the past by a long shot. I think that the students have a better handle on it based on what the confidence level kind of blew me away with some of the students.
I would concur. I think that some of those transferable 21st century skills that we, as we call them, are really evident in our kids. I think we're doing an incredible job with that. And I often say, like, sometimes on paper, you might know a student that's not where they want to be or you want them to be score-wise. But when I sat across the table scoring some of those defenses last week, some of those very same kids are very much ready for life, are very articulate, very bright, and can defend the learning that they've had in their K-12 career. So it's pretty exciting to see that we place such an emphasis on that, right?
And there was a different level, academic level in these students, but even those that did not have the higher academic level still had the confidence and the purpose, and so many of them had already had certifications, and they, whether they followed through with them, they all had plans, and there were several that had backup plans too, not just a single plan. I mean, I'm very encouraged every time I listen to the kids.
Great.
Thank you. Sorry, get off my soapbox, but I know that was a concern.
Okay, I'm going to talk with you today about MTSS. And MTSS, I first kind of want to just give an overview of that. It's called Multi-Tiered System of Supports. And with our MTSS, we have educators as a whole have kind of had to have a mind shift because it used to be that we just thought of, okay, academics, and you were either high, medium, or low. And so with MTSS, that has brought about this mind shift of, there are things that really affect students and how they grow and how they learn. And it could be their behavior, it could be their attendance, it could be something that's going on social and emotionally. So not just that they have a problem learning. So under this umbrella of MTSS, we have all of these things that we have begun to look at as a school district to try to get to the bottom of why a student is having some trouble in an area, or academically, where is that coming from? And so what we do with MTSS is we tier things. So I know you heard Ms. Butler, talk about tier 1 and how tier one is for everyone. That needs to be our strongest tier so that everyone is receiving strong academic instruction, no matter what class, no matter what school, no matter what grade. That also goes for, behavior, social, emotional, and attendance. All students are receiving the same type of intervention or support. Then it goes to tier 2, and tier 2 is more like targeted groups of students who may be struggling in an area, and it can be any of these areas. And then we move to tier 3, which is more one-on-one, really intense, individualized support for our students. So I just kind of wanted to give you an overview of what MTSS is before I kind of break down a few things for you. What we do, we have an MTSS district committee and we meet once a month. And on this committee, we have educators and staff from each of the schools. We meet here and we go through, kind of an agenda, kind of like what we have here. And we look at different data points each month. It might be academics, it might be attendance, it might be behavior. Today, I'm going to break down kind of the behavior for you and kind of walk through that and walk through some of the conversations that we had at our last meeting, and kind of give you some information that way. At each school also has an MTSS team, so they look at things from from each school's individuality. Okay, so so the slide and also my one sheet, they are the exact same information. So I just kind of wanted to share with you a little bit about what our district MTSS meeting was about this past month. Each school brought with them a breakdown of different behaviors that they have been keeping data on, throughout the year. And we were able to talk about these behaviors and kind of talk about it as a district from the district level. And see where some holes are. You can see that SCHS, their behavior, their number one, their biggest concern and biggest violation were cell phones. Next was tardies to class. Next was disorderly conduct. And then the last one was tobacco and drug use, although or tobacco and drug possession or whatever. But you can also see that this hasn't increased from previous years. So they were able to kind of, look at those behaviors. SCMS behaviors, they have made it very clear that they want their tier 1 PBIS needs. PBIS is their positive behavior intervention system that they have in place, that it needs an overhaul, which means they are going back to using CHAMPS, which is a behavior intervention system that they're going to be using school-wide. They feel like that's necessary to kind of get them all on the same page. They also noted that the behavior in the boys' restrooms needs attention. They went to Lee's Middle School, which is a schools to watch, and were able to ask them questions. They were able to observe, and they were able to bring back some great ideas to implement at the school as far as PBIS is concerned. Let's see. They also noted that the most write-ups are happening around 1 o'clock, right after lunch. So when we really dive into this and we can see, hey, 1 o'clock is where we're seeing some issues. So what do we need to do to address that? And then after those behaviors, then the next section was being disrespectful, disorderly conduct, and skipping class. So those are kind of in the order that they shared. SCES behavior, they reported that this is their first year of having PBIS rewards. They noted that 93% referrals were male this year and 6% were female. Also, they noted that most were almost all new students to our district. So that was very interesting. They also noted that they have been able to put those new students into Cub Club small groups with their counselors. And they also noted that the bad behaviors have slowed down a lot as the year has progressed. They are saying they want to be more proactive for next year. They had 23 other behaviors, which included inappropriate language, but they had less than 40 referrals overall, which, for the whole year. So, and then TES behavior, their biggest violation was just disrespectful behavior and disorderly conduct, not following the school rules. Technology abuse was next. They put robbery and theft, but they also noted that sometimes that was like taking a pencil, a pencil from, that kind of thing. Yes. And then I guess a couple of fist fights. They had more than 10 behavior students who need behavior interventions, but that's in the whole school. So while these sound maybe a little drastic, I don't mean for them to sound drastic, it's the way that they're categorized and kind of how we go in and we look at these behaviors so that we can pinpoint different ways, to curtail them and to be proactive and for them to not happen again. So we were able to have wonderful conversation from school to school, along the, throughout the district, about these specific behaviors. So I feel like a lot of these things are just like one or two instances. So don't freak out about the about the words that were used. We really overall have wonderful behavior in all of our schools. The next thing that I'd like to report on is our PBIS walkthrough data. So I had the opportunity and privilege of going to visit each of our A1 schools to do a PBIS walkthrough with OVEC. And what we did was we actually went in at lunch. We interviewed several students and asked them about the expectations at their school. We asked them if they knew what they were. We had them recite them. And then we asked them if they had been given points, PBI's points throughout the year. So they were able to answer those questions. And then we also interviewed teachers, and we also asked teachers about the expectations and if they could tell us what those were and how they used them in the classroom. Each school, I don't want to get ahead of myself. So from that data, I did like a district analysis of it, and then also individual school analysis. So today I'm going to share with you the district analysis. Our strengths overall, we are doing a great job. Each school is in a different year of implementation of PBIS, but it is evident in all schools. PBIS expectation posters are posted in all buildings and throughout in most. And when I say throughout, I mean, you can go into some schools and see that they are posted in the common area. They're posted in the bathrooms. They're posted in the office. They're posted in the cafeteria. They're posted on the wall, on the way outside for, how they're to behave outside. The posters are posted in all buildings, but just some a little more than others. So that was something that we noted. We did also notice that there's evidence of positive student recognition for following expectations in most of the schools. And that is just a learning, depending on what year they're in, you kind of learn to perfect that as you go through it. One of our schools, this is their very, very first year, so they've learned a whole lot after, implementing their procedures this year. And then use of a positive reward system school-wide, that is present in all schools. And then use of an accountability matrix, that's present in all schools. Our areas for growth, and then there are some suggestions. The biggest area that we saw that is needed for our positive behavior is that our classified staff needs to be trained a little better so that they have an understanding as to what those expectations are and can carry things through just like the classroom teachers. So that was one thing that we noted. Let's see here. And a suggestion was to revisit all common areas over the summer and make sure expectations are updated if needed, and to make sure that they're visible, and train any new staff that are hired over the summer for the next school year. Make sure everyone has a copy of the expectations displayed in their classrooms for reference. And then one thing that I thought was interesting in talking with the teachers, there were several teachers in each building that made the comment of, we need to revisit these expectations, not just at the beginning of the year, but consistently throughout the year, especially when we come back from breaks. And so that was a finding as well. So so those are just kind of some updates as far as behavior, our data, our PBIS, and just kind of what is going on with MTSS behavior-wise in our district. Does anybody have any questions for me?
I do.
Okay.
So you have these meetings,
Mhm.
MTSS meetings.
Yes.
You bring in staff from various schools.
Yes.
And you have these discussions.
Yes.
And then what?
So, okay, good question. So then they take what we have done at our district meeting back to their buildings.
Okay.
And then that way it's kind of carried out that way.
Okay.
Yes.
So we look for like district trends,
Yes.
as far as behavior goes, especially when you're talking about attendance. Are we seeing the same family issues across schools versus just at one school? It could be with behaviors around the same time. So maybe every, like after lunches is always big for all the schools. So it's really finding those trend datas. And then we talk about as a district, is there a way to combat attendance district-wide versus school by school? Are we having more of a certain behavior in one school, or is it happening? So we can kind of look at district-wide behaviors and make some changes in our systems districtly, and then they can take that back and say, okay, all the schools are kind of seeing this. This is where we kind of said from a district. So in a school, maybe we need to change some things around so that we can kind of maybe see some changes there. So that's kind of how it trickles down. Again, back to that consistency. We're talking the same things. We're looking for the same types of behaviors and things like that. So that's kind of why we do it district-wide, and then it's supposed to trickle down into the schools as well.
And that can also carry over into, academics. Like we're looking at the whole district and we are saying, okay, so, at third grade, they had this really good, but seventh grade, not so. So what has happened? Or from third to fourth, like what happened from third to fourth grade? Or, and so that kind of helps us, just kind of look at everything as a whole and find holes that maybe if we were just looking at just one school at a time, we might miss.
Well, I think you answered that in the areas of growth and suggestions. It's just how do you implement that and make sure everybody's on board?
Yeah.
Is sort of.
Yeah, well, and it takes time. I mean, it takes time, it takes consistency, it takes a lot of feedback, there's some people that can be resistant to that kind of feedback. So it takes a lot of encouragement. It takes a lot of support, patience, but it definitely takes time, just for them to be open to that. Yeah, it's a good question.
No, sorry. I would say the other thing that's important to realize, and this would probably be an hour presentation in of itself, MTSS teams, as they go back to their buildings, really, in addition to looking at school specific, is getting in the weeds of kid by kid. And so I would use two examples. So I would use the high school. They have a conversation, is it every other week, name and need? Monthly, once a month. So once a month, they meet and basically they look at every senior. And they look at post-secondary readiness, where they are, what's possible, what's not, what's keeping a student from being post-secondary ready. Elementary school, that conversation would look different. It would start with a MAP test or a U-Fly diagnostic or something like that, and really start to pinpoint which kids in tier 1 instruction aren't getting enough. And what do they need to make sure that they are. So that starts here, looking through district lens, district data, district, those types of things. But when it goes back to the school, it is more what's happening in our building, but most importantly, in the kids. Absolutely.
Okay.
So that's it for us. Any other questions for all of us, one of us, anything like that? Hopefully did a good overall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, guys.
I want
So-
documents.
Yeah, Mr. Russell gets to stay, and then Miss St. Bernard is going to join. Y'all have Miss Davidson on there, but I don't see her.
No, she's not gonna be with us.
So typically this year, about this time of year, we ask the board to approve Tiger Cup Village, formerly known as Bear Care Worlds. It's kind of a standard thing. This year, you have a couple of worlds colliding. Knock on wood, jump up and down. The second floor project is about done. So Miss St. Bernard is going to have lots of new square footage at her disposal. Tiger Cub Village is going to be back in their home, which is long overdue. But we have an opportunity to use that facility, but also to look at things a little bit differently to serve our youngest children. And so in addition to rates tonight, I've asked Todd and Beth to really talk to you guys about what are some of the conversations we've had, because they do impact tuition, but it's more to it than just the dollar amount that goes with it. It's what we're going to do to serve families, to serve kids, and help them in their early process with us. All right, guys.
Okay, so I will kind of give you the background. I sat before you all last spring and talked about a complete revamp of our child care program. And at that time, part of that revamp is we went from Bear Care to Tiger Cub Village. We changed a lot of the way that we do things in our program. That was phase one. Now we're bringing to you phase two. So that's tonight. The presentation that we're going to go over is basically going to be preschool related. The rate sheet that we will go over later will have it all, preschool through 5th grade. However, this presentation is basically related to preschool and how we're going to do Tiger Cub Village and our preschool program. So, and also I'm going to say this, Miss St. Bernard, she will be taking over the supervision of Tiger Cub Village on July 1. So I appreciate that very much so. I will give up one of my hats. So what I'm going to do is kind of go over the overview of what we have currently. So right now we provide wraparound childcare for preschool students needing care outside of standard class time. So we may have a full day preschool student that needs before and after childcare. Got that. We may have a half day AM preschool student that needs that PM wraparound care. So they're serviced through Tiger Cub Village. We offer services Monday through Friday. It's year round, including breaks. And as I said before, the morning or afternoon half day preschool students, we offer that wraparound care. The full day preschool students before and after school. What we're doing now, here's going to be one of the biggest differences. Is right now, it is not seen as part of our preschool program. It is basic childcare, just like you would get anywhere else. We focus on supervision, social development, basic activities, crafts, free play, story time, gross motor. As Miss Clevenger, I'm watching her right here as I say that. She knows preschool better than anybody. That's not what preschool is all about, so preschool is a little bit different. So the difference between what we have right now and where we're trying to head with this, as Dr. Foster said, two worlds are going to collide. Right now, it's staffed by child care workers. Those are people that are basically on the same pay scale as an instructional assistant. They don't have any formal training as far as, a credential, a bachelor's, an associate's, anything like that. And right now, not required to use a formal preschool curriculum. So that is our current program. I'm going to let Miss St. Bernard take over, and she's going to tell you where we're trying to head with the new program.
All right. So I talked with Mr. Russell about this, and we're kind of looking at this as like a phase two of Tiger Cub Village. Okay. So we do know that we have a need for pre-K in the district. Every year we have folks that go on a waiting list. And in August, end of July, we reached out to families who may have had a screener earlier in the spring last year. They're waiting to see if their kids were accepted, right? They've probably already arranged care by then. So we did lose some of our families. We were able to fill up our full day classrooms. I think maybe we had a couple of openings throughout the year. We had some half day openings, but again, they had the need. They just couldn't wait to see if, okay, we have to wait for kids to go through the screener to see if they qualify, and then we take whatever is left, okay? And we know that a lot of our child care facilities in the district are also full, so we know that there is a need. So we're looking at doing a 3-year-old room and a 4-year-old room under the Tiger Cub Village umbrella
but we would have integrated the district approved curriculum, which is 3 tiers for pre-K. We would staff that with a teacher who may not necessarily have their full certification, but they might want to work under an option 6 or an option 9 while they're working toward their certification. So they could be in our district getting real world experience, receiving training and coaching from our people and using our curriculum. And then our instructional assistants in the room would be more like the childcare workers. So we would have one full-time teacher or someone working toward their certification in the room, and then we would probably split, like do a morning shift assistant and an afternoon assistant, because we have the ability to provide that full care from 6:30 a.m. to 6 p.m. for these rooms. It would leave Miss Davidson, who's finishing up her teaching degree. She actually graduates this weekend. That would shift her from being just like a director to being more of a coach. So she would be providing some coaching for these folks, doing some PLCs and that sort of thing. We would have a more structured daily schedule where we would emphasize academics, the social emotional development, and kindergarten readiness. So we are anticipating that this tuition rate would be higher because what they're receiving is going to be more than just wraparound childcare. And then this would be open to families who want a more formalized preschool experience but need those extended hours and really just don't want to wait to see if there's room for them at the preschool, until the end of July or beginning of August. And so I've kind of compared them to our current Tiger Cub Village and what they offer. And then we're thinking about calling it, we haven't decided on a name, but something like the Academy and Tiger Cub Village.
Oh, that's good.
And then there is a rate chart. And so I'm going to give you guys, I'll just talk about it briefly. And then if you have any questions about this, I'm happy to answer. So on the rate chart, the first column is our traditional Tiger Cub Village wraparound care. That's what we have right now. She services kiddos again who need that before school or after school care in our full day and on Fridays, or if they're AM and they need the PM care, and then on Fridays. The current rate for that right now is $135 a week, and then they get a small deduction for a sibling. And the break weeks, it increases a little bit more. What we're proposing is that increases from $135 per week to $150 a week. So that's a $15 per week increase in what the traditional Tiger Cub Village is this year. Employees get a 30% discount, and then there's also a drop-in rate, like if we have a snow day or something like that and Tiger Cub Village is open. What we're proposing for the new 3-year-old classroom and the 4-year-old classroom under the Academy umbrella would be $195 per week if they only wanted the traditional hours of pre-K. But if they wanted those extended hours of wraparound care, that would be $225 per week. This is considering if we're only asking that teacher to work a traditional teacher calendar of $185. So during the school year, we could charge this price. If we're not going to staff it with a teacher year round, if it goes back to childcare, then we would revert back to that original Tiger Cub Village price. An idea that I threw out is that our preschool teachers don't have the opportunity to work summer school like the teachers do at the elementary schools, middle schools. So if we wanted to continue to charge that higher price year round, I've kind of just put a feeler out there to see if anybody would be interested. A lot of our teachers already work a second job in the summer, so they would love to come and like our preschool teachers work during the summer, and we could charge this increased rate and continue that year round. It would be kind of like a summer school at the preschool. And then our tuition-based students, right now we're charging for half-day tuition-based students $250 per month, and our full day is $400 per month. We're looking at increasing that somewhere around $30. So $280 per month for our half-day tuition-based at the preschool, and $430 per month for the full day at the preschool. And then you can see that they get a 25% discount for employees. Since August and May are half months, we only charge them half the cost of that. And then the last column is our school age childcare, and that is $135 per week if they want before and after. They're looking to increase that again to $150, and then it's $95 per week if they want before or after. And they're looking to increase that to about $110 per week.
Are there any questions on that?
How do these rates compare to daycare facilities?
So Training Wheels charges $210 right now per week that they're getting ready to increase. And then Treehouse charges $165 per week, and Little Stars charges $185 per week. And we always have lots of parents that, come to us and think that our rates are reasonable for what we're offering.
Right.
Our students eat for free at the preschool right now. We provide breakfast, lunch, and a snack. Again, if there is a preschool monitor on the bus, then they're eligible for transportation as well, if there's a monitor on that route.
So the bang for the buck is excellent.
And one of the biggest things that our county lacks right now is the amount of childcare that we need. There's 4 childcares in the whole county. And so by us expanding, we're able to offer, that service to more kids. Right now, we're, like Ms. St. Bernard said, is at screening, we're having to put those kids on a waiting list. The parents are saying, well, I have to make a decision, because they need that care. And so by the time that we know, hey, we've got a spot, we've already called them and they've said, well, no, we had to go somewhere else. So hopefully this will be a service that will bring us more kids and we can get them on our preschool curriculum and get them ready for kindergarten.
The other thing I would say for our district standards, the price that probably seems really high, if you look at column 2, the Academy of Tiger Cup Village. So when you look at that one, what's proposed, so the school year only, so let's say it's a student who wants to have the ability to do what would be the equivalent of what we call preschool now with wraparound service. So right now, those students, if they're tuition based, would pay $400 a month, plus they would pay for wraparound service. So really, when you look at this, it puts both of those into one thing. So wraparound service is $90 a week or $95 right now.
Say that again.
Wraparound
for
service
pre-K,
for pre-K right
it's
now,
$135.
$135. So then, but they would also, if they're a tuition-based student, they would pay $400 a month,
Yes.
which is $100 a week.
Correct. So if they're a current half-day tuition and they pay for Tiger Cup Village, they're paying about $197.50 a week. If they're full day in Tiger Cup Village wraparound, they're paying about $235 a week right now.
So when you look at that, it's still very much in line with what we're doing currently. And would be more focused on and aligned with the preschool program.
Correct. And it would just be an amazing feeder program for our option 6, option 9. Additionally, something we did not mention is I've been working with Ms. Slaughter talking about bringing Ms. Vance, who runs the education pathway from the high school, and getting her a classroom set up in that space so that those high school students could come over to co-op and then also just do the hours that they need for that education pathway in those classrooms.
So when you look at the facility, one of the things that, Mr. Rucker, I wish I could copy his brain and keep up with it all, but when you look at the facility, the square footage and classroom opportunities on the second floor is amazing. And it is turning out beautiful. So really, this right here, I think, is a modest, I hope, a wise step for us. 1 3-year-old room, 1 4-year-old room, and really see what the community demand and requests are. I would love to have to come to the board in 2 or 3 months and say, these things filled up so fast, we've got to look at more. I hope that's a problem we have, but we also have to make sure we can staff it, we can manage it, and it fits all the other pieces, the transportation needs, the food needs. So I think it's a good first step. My dream is that second floor is full of young children in this county that are all leaving there ready for kindergarten. Like that would be a dream come true. But, so it will be a step in the right direction. And I think it also makes sure that we don't have to tell families no. And, we'll kind of live and learn and go from there.
So how big of a waiting list do we have at the end of the year roughly?
So I've conducted 2 screeners so far, so we've
Yeah.
saw about 48 kiddos who have the potential to come in, and almost 20 of those are on a waiting list.
Because they didn't qualify for preschool,
Correct.
Yeah.
which is based upon either a potential developmental delay or income eligibility.
So, Mr. Phelps, if you think about if you're a father sitting at that meeting and you're talking to Ms. St. Bernard, she will inform you, which is hard. She'll say, Mr. Phelps, your child didn't qualify, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
And walk you through the numbers and justification of how you would have qualified and where your child was and didn't qualify. But now she will be able to say, however, we have another option where you can stay and come to our program and your child is going to get, a preschool curriculum. Your son is going to get breakfast and lunch and those types of things, which is something we've not had the ability to do. We've had to essentially ask families to hurry up and wait. Hurry up and get the screening. Let's get them through. Let's get them screened. But we need you to wait and see if maybe a seat will come open. And as a family, especially working families, they have to figure it out. And so they have to make sure that their children have somewhere to go, somewhere to watch them. You can get to work and get home and make sure everybody's taken care of. So we lose them and we lose contact. And sometimes when seats do come open, they've already committed to something. Their kid knows it. They get into a routine and they're not going to miss that. So this is going to.
By starting at an earlier age, you would technically, my parents own several daycares. So that's their money-making age group. By doing this, you would be able to fill that second floor much quicker, because they would be losing out on that. So that's why I was checking the price point. It seems a little high. I've had some complaints, hey, we like that, but it's high. But then when you're looking at it from this angle, saying, hey, you're getting this curriculum at an earlier age that you're not getting in standard daycare, so that would be something that could build on them. So
Correct.
And when they say that about the waiting list, those are not for children who qualify. You can't have a waiting list.
for this,
If your child qualifies one way or the other,
they have to be accepted.
we have to make room for them. So these are
Correct.
just the tuition base. And now if you have a four-year-old with a four-year-old class and they are low income, then, because I'm thinking of who is going to be able to use this class.
Yeah.
They would qualify for the preschool.
Correct.
But your 3-year-olds, unless Head Start takes them.
Correct.
And how many slots do they have?
16.
So your 3-year-olds, I wish there was some type
Well,
of scholarship
They
thing.
would, now they can. If they're low income, they can qualify for childcare assistance. And we,
Yes.
Tiger Cub Village can point them in the right
And
direction of
that
how to
will
get that
go
going.
toward, okay.
Yes,
That's
100%.
what I was,
Correct.
because those kids that may not have the same amount of experiences simply because they don't have the resources.
Mhm.
The family does all they can. So I like to hear that there is a
We-
possible option.
We have several families who receive childcare assistance that are enrolled in our Tiger Cup Village program right now.
Mhm.
Good.
And then our final screeners are in July on the 11th and 18th. So again, that's just a really late date for parents to make a decision. So after the 18th, and I still have to go in and assemble all those class lists. So it's really mid to the end of July before they know. And so they're like, sorry, we would love to, but we had to make other arrangements, so.
So we have an action item coming up. And so we wanted Ms. St. Bernard and Mr. Russell to share this with you first. So the action item includes approving all the tuition, but what is pressing tonight is the summer. We need to make sure that our families know what they would be paying this summer. So we knew this was the first time for you to process it and hear it and work through it. So we could approve it all tonight or just the summer, but either way, we need some clarity for the summer.
Somebody put a lot of thought into it.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay. All right, item C is administrative salary contractual days update. So something that we wanted to solve at the same time that we solved our challenge with some of our other folks in lead was looking at our administrator stuff. However, it was tied to a policy that's going to take to be revised, so we just kind of held off and brought it to you this month. So historically, no matter where you work as in Kentucky, really, as an administrator, there's three parts to your salary. There is a base pay, there is compensation for days that you work above and beyond student days, and then there is some responsibility factor. Some districts, that's a stipend. Some districts, that's what I call a multiplier. So in Spencer County, we have what's called a multiplier system. Those things for us are really not what we're trying to talk about tonight. What we have is we have kind of a wonky, for lack of a better term, approach to contractual days. Most districts, administrators are on 240-day contracts, and either they have vacation or non-contract days. Some districts have 260 primarily. That would be JCPS and some places that touch there for recruiting reasons. We have 250, and if you looked at the OVEC wage and calculation book, we're the only district that uses 250-day contracts. And I don't really know how we landed there, other than I think over time they got reduced, and there was a mixture of some vacation and some non-contract. So that really is what we're trying to clarify, because that became muddy over time. So if you turn to the next page, what we're trying to do is to get our administrators back down to 240-day contracts, just like everybody else really outside of JCPS. So what we've tried to do is get them to a point where they're not managing both vacation and non-contract days, but they don't lose money on their annual salary, and it doesn't cost the board more money. So to do that, on page 2, you see a current method. So somebody that their base pay, if they were on the teacher pay scale, $65,000, you see their daily rate times 250 and a responsibility factor of 25%, and you see what their salary comes out to be. If we change that responsibility factor, knowing that no longer are going to have vacation days, but you're going to have a 240-day contract with X number of non-contract days, what responsibility factor would it take to essentially keep everybody's salary the same, not go down and not cost the board more money? That basically was a 5% increase across the board. So that would get us to 250 mathematically. And that's what I was prepared to bring to you last month. What we had to fix was the policy that goes with it. And so when you turn over, we have a policy 3.122. So there are some pieces that needed to be revised to make that work. And so you can see there are some pieces that have been stricken through and some places that have been added, and that's where the italicized and underlined print. So you can basically see all of our teaching personnel will continue to get 4 paid holidays. That's not new, that's not different, it's just clarified. Any teaching personnel that works 240 days would continue to get 8 holidays, 4 designated by our calendar and 4 designated by the superintendent. That's not new, that's not changed. Then changing the certified administrator personnel who work 240 days shall be eligible for 10 holidays, 4 designated by the calendar and 6 designated by me. If you remember, we added the 2, so we have 1 after Thanksgiving and 1 after Christmas. That was a nice free benefit, if you will, that we added to those folks for this year. And so the biggest change from here, if you go to the very bottom, is basically taking out the wording of vacation days. Vacation days is really a benefit given the employees across any type of work that stays with you. So the fact that we call them vacation days is kind of deceiving, because we don't allow them to carry over without my approval, which is kind of muddy. But then you have to ask, well, how and why are they really different from a non-contract day? And to be honest, they're not. So all of these folks now would work 240 days, and the rest would be non-contract days instead of vacation. So just like we did with our custodial folks, our administrative folks would have their contracts clarified and simplified, if you will, and really at no cost. So then if you turn to that back page, Mr. Murphy always gives us fancy, organized spreadsheets to put all of that nonsense into one clean spot. So you can see the impact. So the first is this affects 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. So our 2 elementary school principals, middle school principal, high school principal. So you see each responsibility factor needed to go up 5% to go down to 240. So each of these will go from 250 working days down to 240. and the rest would be non-contract. And it also affects Ms. Butler, Mr. Rucker, and Mr. Russell. And so essentially, it is not a financial change, it is more of a contractual working day thing. That's a mouthful. Questions?
That's clear as mud.
Clear as mud.
What, at the beginning of the policy, the second and third, the certified teaching personnel who work 240 and then the certified administrative personnel. How does the difference in the 8 holidays versus the 10 holidays work out?
Ag teachers, basically. So ag teachers are not administrative, and really, they just have 53 extended days. So they're essentially, administrators either are working or have to take a non-contract day. Ag teachers have to do the 185 and then work 53 extended days, which they can kind of do anywhere. So naturally, they get holidays wherever they choose to put them, if that makes sense.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And that's by statute, that you have
Correct.
to give them that.
Yeah, they are our only teaching personnel that work. That's it.
Okay.
We have 3 of those. Okay, so that's it for the presentation. There is an action with that one to approve those changes, and I just wanted to walk through.
Any other, other questions?
All right, Mr. Murphy is going to join us and walk us through. It is tentative budget season. In a couple of weeks, he will be bringing to you our tentative budget for 25-26.
3 weeks to be precise. Let's don't cut it short.
Who's counting?
I am definitely counting, and I do like having 3 weeks between the meetings. It makes it much easier to get done. So I wanted to just go through a very high level overview of the tentative budget process. We won't be getting into the weeds with the numbers. I don't have those weeds identified yet in a lot of cases, but we're working on that. We're in good shape there. So the first thing is my recurring reminder that we can only spend $1 one time. We can spend it however we want to. We did talk last year that we can afford anything. We just can't afford everything. Didn't want to bore you with the exact same slide or something that you might see on the side of an interstate. But the entire budgeting process is all about priorities. So where we put that dollar says where our priority is. And so the challenge to all of us is that we put it in the right place. And so we're developing the budget and we'll present it to you based on things that are recommended and based on things that you all have already identified and approved in the process. Next slide, our budget timeline. We are almost halfway through a 9-month budget process. January, the draft budget was presented to the board. In February, the preliminary staffing and Section 6 allocations were presented and approved by the board. The state's biennial budget has already been adopted, and so that's another check mark. The salary scales were approved last month. I can't tell you how important that is to do that in April instead of May. It really does help the budgeting process. And it was a challenge to get it done, but I think it was well worth the challenge. This month, of course, is tentative budget time. So that will come in 3 weeks. That will be presented and approved by the end of May. July is not really part of the budget season, but July will be closing the year. August, we'll be doing the tax levy where the board sets the tax rate. And then in September, we will put a bow around the budget cycle, and the budget will be established for next school year, and anything beyond that will be done in the form of budget amendments, which of course last month we did have the annual major budget amendment. Nothing says we can't do more than one, but it is important to at least take a look at that at one time in the year. So looking at the difference between what you saw in January and what you will see later this month, the draft budget, there is not a lot that's known in January. Boards they're not even required to approve the budget. Grant funds are not included. because we haven't even begun to get those awards. Honestly, we have not begun to get the awards yet, except for Perkins. Perkins is the only one that we have received, and that is vocational funding. Some districts, as far as the draft budget, they'll spend a couple of hours on it, roll it forward, and call it quits. I don't believe in doing that. I don't think it's very productive, but I do take it seriously and want to put enough time into it that it does give us some way of informing our progress going forward. But there is very limited usefulness in the draft budget. The tentative budget at this point and in the coming weeks, much more is known. Preliminary grants are going to be included. There are multiple ways of dealing with that. You can look at a hold harmless amount of 85 to 90%, or you can just roll the amounts forward and know that ultimately you're not making staffing decisions or salary increase decisions based on grant funds anyway. What we decide to do is not really that going to make any difference in decisions that are made. Again, ideally, the current year's budget will have been amended and salary scales will have been adopted, and those were both done last month. We have received the SEEK revenue forecast from the Department of Education already, and that will be reflected in the tentative budget that you see. And the tentative budget is the budget that is adopted, or is the budget that we open the new school year with. So when the new school year opens, what is approved in 3 weeks is what will be in Munis as the starting budget. So what do we know? COVID money. We've all used that slang terminology, but the COVID funds ended September 30 of 2024. That money is gone. And so that caused all of us that are involved in that process, you, me, Dr. Foster, caused us all to reprioritize and look at what we have and what we can do with that, because there's no white stallion coming with more money. The COVID is really a once in a lifetime thing. I say that, and I remember the days of the American Rescue and Recovery Act or whatever. Some of you all have been around for a while. You remember that. I never thought we would see anything like that. And what we ended up seeing is that on steroids with the COVID funds. But I say that the indirect cost revenue that came into the general fund as a result of actions taken by this board, Ms. Clevenger and Dr. Shelburne were on the board at that time, where we were directed to take indirect costs on federal grants. For FY24, for last school year, that was about $106,000. It's much less this year because the funds were winding down, and it will go to zero from those funds. Not from all federal funds, but just from the COVID funds. The state biennial budget, as I said, has already been set for next year. The seat base, that is a critical part of that, is set at $4,586 per pupil. Some other things that are factoring into the budget is inflation. That factor is improving, but it is still impacting the district's expenses. So you see here on this slide of trying to look at a consistent time of the year over the last 3 years, that in March of 23, that was 5%. The following year, it was 3.5%, and it's currently at 2.4%. So that's a good sign, but it's still in there, and it is still impacting the district's budget. Of course, that affects our employees, just like it affects us, and it affects you too. The board took bold steps for the current school year with a 5% salary increase for all employees, and last month approved a 2% increase, which is pretty consistent with what we're seeing with other school districts that have responded to a survey online about what they have done or what their board intends to do or will be recommended. Spencer County, of course, is still a growing county. It does seem to be showing some signs of slowing. You all live here and feel that every day. But you see some of the historical numbers going from picking an arbitrary 4-year period to skip through, and then the last year only being 2 years from the last report. But 3.6%, 6.6% growth for a couple of those periods, and then back down for the last 2 years to 3.1%. Of course, that's not using the same source, but it's not available on the other source, so I had to go to census information. And of course, with any growing district, the revenue does not keep pace, and we know that. So what that does, that puts more of the burden on the local taxpayer, especially when you're in a community that does not have a strong industrial base. So our taxpayers in Spencer County are feel that, but it impacts the entire budget that for the entire district. So what will be in the budget? On the revenue side, the tentative budget will reflect things such as projected tax revenue, because the biggest unknown at this time of the year is the tax levy that will be adopted in August. That's not something that is critical. It's just a fact. There is no way for you all to even say what you will do in August because we have to be presented with the options from the Department, or from the Department of Revenue, not the Department of Education. The SEEK revenue, like I mentioned, has already been forecasted by the Department of Education. That will be in there. And then projected revenue from other sources and in other funds will be in the tentative budget that comes to you in a few weeks. On the expense side, changes that the board has already approved, such as bids, lawn mowing, insurance, things like that, or other things like the technology van that we have been looking for and have not yet found and probably will not until after the first of the school year. Things like the athletic trainer that has had to be incorporated into the budget. A lot of other things like that, all of those, the operations plans that you have approved, be it transportation, technology, food service, those kind of things. And then the staffing allocations in the Section 6 supply allocations that were approved by the board in February, salary scales and step improvements with experience that were approved in April, and then personnel changes that were presented from special education and Hillview that were approved last month. So all of those are going to be in the budget that comes to you in 3 weeks. Those will be quantified in the time leading up to that, and we will try to get that out to you the week before the board meeting and give you the best budget that we can, and hopefully there'll be good news in there. We shall see. Questions?
Are you catching wind of any decrease in federal funding with the new administration? And
There's not a clear picture. There has, of course, been a lot of fear, trepidation, about what could happen. There were changes the last time there was a change in administration, and it's just a different way of handling the funds. I don't think it's just shuffling the deck of cards. I do think there are some real changes that will be there. The last time that happened, I was at OVEC and doing grant writing, and there were some things with that change, just like it has just happened, where the grant funds were no longer really handled through the co-ops. They wanted them to go in a different way, in a different direction. And so we are watching for those kind of things. My staff and personnel staff will be in training the next 3 days in Louisville, and I hope there is some kind of information. Yeah, we'll be rubbing shoulders with people from the Department of Education, other school districts, some that are much, much larger than ours, that might have some insight through some means. But again, if for budgeting purposes, if Title I, we put in there at a certain level and it's 100,000 less.
Right.
Ultimately, the budget is still okay from what we normally focus on, being the general fund. But there are real people behind those positions that are grant funded that we will have to take into consideration from an HR side, from a financial side, all around.
And then I have a question also, and this probably doesn't have so much to do with the budget, but on the budget timeline, refresh my memory of your plans. Are you?
Personal?
Yeah, yes. Or when are you leaving us? Have
You
decided?
see that green circle around the
it.
tentative budget approval?
Yes.
The next square, I will not be here.
Yes. Okay, that's what I wondered.
July 31st is my last day.
Is that it?
July 31st is the last day.
Why are you gonna leave before the?
You know, you were.
I've had fun, almost 4 years of fun, and I really have enjoyed it.
She was asking about the grants. The one that came to mind with me was grant money we received for locally sourced food. That was
Yes.
federal. Did I understand that that was cut?
That's my understanding.
How's that right now,
Yes.
How much was that grant?
50,000.
50,000, sorry.
That's okay, no worries.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Oh, well, yeah, but I was worried.
We've also had a few other things impacted. We've had a pot that funded some student workers. We've had a position in our district, which I won't share publicly right now, but in addition to what's going on, it's not only the fact that it's tough to plan without those positions and what we do. It's been very abrupt. And, so that part has also been very tough. So, so far, I would argue that we've been lucky. We've not been completely protected. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. All right, next up is Mr. Chesser. Transportation / communication /
Other duties of the
part-time mechanic /
Yeah, it should go in. See if it works.
what you did to make that work so fast.
Well, it's not working yet. Don't get too excited.
It says connecting to you.
It's spinning. Don't let me down now. There we go. See? Here we go. We're getting somewhere now. Yeah.
Here we go.
All right, we should be good to go now. All right, so kind of what I'm going to talk about tonight is just some software stuff. I didn't think I would ever see this day. I kind of stopped software when I first got here just because it hadn't come as far as I would like for our district. So this Zoom meeting, we have people from a company called BusRight. So just a brief overview, and then I'll kind of turn it over to them so we can get them off of here. So this is kind of an all-in-one system. So right now, I don't know if you know or not, I do most of our transportation stuff manually. So like our router, I do all that by hand. I time them by hand, keep those updated by hand, and that's what goes to a sub driver. As our district continues to grow, that's becoming more and more for me to take on as I try to take on other stuff across the district to make our district a better place. So if you look at Elk Creek with the amount of new houses and the amount of new kids coming in and out, the whole Shelby County line situation, I think now is probably a good time for us to look at our options. Right now, we're one of the few districts that don't have any type of software of that nature in place. So it's also becoming a recruitment retainment thing. So kind of what they have to offer is they would have tablets on the buses. They would have turn-by-turn directions, like student tracking. So, we take attendance in classrooms. If you think back to the bus fire that we had a couple of months ago, or right around spring break, I could have told you who should have been on that bus. I could not have told you who was actually on that bus. We don't have any of those types of systems in place. And as we move forward with technology, I think that's something that is on the horizon quicker than we need to push down the road. So kind of what they have is live bus location, stop times. They'll have a piece for field trip management. which in case you don't know, between the sports teams and field trips, like we are field tripping a lot. That all comes to me too. It's not as manual as it once was, but there's still a manual aspect of it. And then just digital pre-trip, post-trip inspections and documenting those. So we used to have physical copies printed. A couple years ago, I had asked to move to an app, which we have done, and that has worked wonders for us. So this is kind of taking that next step and getting the systems that we do have in place to where they talk to each other. So right now, our field trips are in one system with our work orders, but our inspections and student write-up forms and stuff are in a different app, but those two systems don't communicate. So I would like to look at our options to try to talk and get all of these together. Like I said, most districts already have went this route, so I don't want to be behind as we try to retain and recruit across the board. So I will turn it over to Nathan and Marty, who work at BusRight. They're just going to give a high-level overview. So I was very upfront with any software that I demoed. I said, look, this is not going to be a me decision. We've had issues before. Like, we're all going to look at this together before we say yes or no, or what we may or may not be able to pull off. Nelson County did just go with BusRight. They have already started implementation. I've been working very, very closely with them to kind of see how theirs went. So far, it has worked wonders for their district. Jefferson County just signed a huge contract with a different company. So districts are moving forward at a rapid pace with this kind of stuff. So Nathan, Marty, can you hear me? You good? All right. Yep, you're good to go. So I'm gonna turn it over to you all if you want to take the lead on this.
Yeah, I don't know, you did a fantastic job right there. I think I can just kind of go back. Well, I want to start by saying thank you, Cameron, for giving us a chance to speak tonight at your board meeting. It's been a pleasure working with him, learning more about your community, more about your drivers, challenges, and so on. So his dedication to transportation is definitely top notch. You guys have a great transportation director. And for the folks that don't know, BusRight actually was created to help folks like Cameron. So whether it's the crippling driver shortage, the increasing route complexities, the demands from parents, which ultimately put a lot of stress and strain on all of you folks, right? Especially I'm sure you've had parents that attend at the board meetings for a few different reasons. So hopefully we'll be able to eliminate a little bit of that in the near future for you as well. So BusRight was the first tablet technology in the K-12 space. We have the most tablets on the bus throughout the entire country with navigation as well. We also strive to be the best one in low connectivity and no connectivity areas. So I know exactly where you live. It's an area exactly like where I live. I live up the Adirondack Mountains in New York. The majority of the districts that live around me use our software because it operates exactly like the things that we use in our daily life. So if you can imagine Google Maps on your phone and you want to go to a different location, and when you get into an area where it doesn't have any connection, it still gets you to where you need to go because it pre-downloads to your device. Our software operates exactly the same way. It will pre-download for the driver before they leave the lot. So no matter if they have zero connectivity from the moment that they leave, from the moment they get back, every single bus stop, direction, and student will show up on that tablet. So we can do all the things that Cameron just said. Check them in on the bus, see the GPS history of where they went. And that happens in live time. So I will start our presentation there with the GPS side. We are one of the only companies in the industry that allows you to see your fleet in live time. So if you have 45 vehicles, you can see 45 yellow buses moving around every 2 to 4 seconds with the driver and how fast they're going. More importantly, because it's also our routing application, you have this interactive dashboard that shows you how you're performing. It's again in real time. So I can see I have 2 buses that are late, and I can notify those parents within 2 seconds just by clicking on notifications in that bottom left-hand corner. I can also click on any route and it will bring me down to route level. You have unlimited users, anyone can do this. So think of the calls that come in. You can go all the way down to the bus stop to give them as much information as possible. If they lived at that white house right there, you can say, hey, in the next 4 to 6 seconds, that bus is gonna be taking a right-hand turn down the road. Please get your child outside. And then when it comes to a complete stop, like Cameron said, you can also scan them in, scan them home. You have that information going through the entire platform as well. All right, the next thing that I have is going to be the GPS history. So we store this information for you indefinitely. Any bus, any route, any date range. For you to gather this information, all you do is say, hey, I want to see a vehicle and the date range of the information that I want to pull forward. And it's as easy as Google Maps. I zoom in and it gives me all of the information that you were looking for. And I'm assuming, Cameron, you get phone calls all the time, parents.
Every day.
Right?
They're always friendly too.
Always friendly. So we know when they call, right? I've been in the industry for about 20 years. They're calling, it's never to say Cameron's doing a great job, which she is. It's always to say, hey, the bus didn't stop, the bus was speeding, it didn't stop long enough. My hopes is that I'm gonna give every single person at your district the ability to answer this question within about 4 seconds. You say, hey, we didn't stop. We can tell you that we stopped at the bus stop this morning at 7:25 a.m. So this is a live customer of mine that I have permission to use in the database. The stop sign is a 0 miles per hour calculator that shows me exactly how long I stood at that location at 0 miles per hour before I went onto the next one. So in this instance, it was 20 seconds. And then if you just drive down the road, every 2 to 4 seconds, you can see exactly how fast that vehicle was going. So hopefully equipping your team with more information so those parents, they'll call once or twice and then they'll realize that you have all the information, all the answers as well. Cameron, are we open this up for questions or do you want me to keep going?
Yeah, no, go ahead. You can. If you all have any questions, you can interrupt him or you can keep going. We're good so far.
Right. Sounds good. The routing side is one of the other big challenges that's happening. So, and Cameron said he looked at technology in the past. Technology in the past, and there was some good companies, don't get me wrong, but it was very outdated. Every single action you did was individual. I could build an individual route, make a change to an individual stop. Busway, about 4 years ago, came out with what we call multi-do. It's your ability to do a lot with a variable. We import your screen information system, so they're going to lay it on this screen. And we can also take all of the routes that we either are creating or that we've already created to make it so you can be more optimal. So I listened to your entire board meeting today. I think the word budget came up a few times, BOE came up a few times, right? There's lots of concerns about dollars that are out there in the environment and what can we do to make some of those back. My hope is that if you're coming from zero technology, that we can make you 5 to 10% more efficient, then the cost of the software no longer matters. We can remove a vehicle because you can get in here and make changes because now you have a 1,000-foot view of your operation. It'll keep this cost tenfold. So on this screen, you can see I have 4 different bus routes. Each one of them are nicely color coordinated in the order that they go. Here is the total distance each driver is driving, their duration, and the capacity of each vehicle. So in those situations where I don't have enough drivers, or we need to remove a bus, or we need to do redistricting in the future for XYZ reason, whatever that's going to be, you can say, hey, show me whatever I need to see on my map, and then you can easily make changes by clicking, dragging, and dropping. So ease of use in our platform is one of the main things that we focus on. So there's no toolbars, no commands. You can do it in Google Maps. You can do it inside the bus registry. So for time's sake, if I wanted to take, bus stop 12 on the green, because it's my longest run at 1 hour and 10 minutes, and I wanted to move that to, let's say, between 10 and 11 on this ground run, I come over here, I drag the bus stop to wherever it needs to go. That moved my stops, it moved my students, it optimized between those 2 stops. It went to a tablet 1 second later, and we include a parent application so the parents are instantly updated as soon as a change like this happens as well. And like I said, the other thing we do is your import comes in here, it lands on your map. So those kids that are coming in, nightly, 3 o'clock in the morning, Cameron's gonna get an email, it's gonna let them know who they are, so we can instantly route them. 1 of 2 ways, right? One way is they get a door-to-door bus stop, or we can just make it click and drag and drop in any route that makes sense. The other way is a group stop, if it's like in a city, a town, whatever it's going to be. You click on the bus stop and you drive. Either way, my hopes is that I get Cameron time back to go do the other, I think, like 6 things someone gave him in his title as he came in. I almost was gonna crack a joke that we should add IT to it. It took a little while to get up there, but we got up there. The last thing that I have for you is the parent communication side. So we give you all of this information, whether it's the routing side, the GPS information, your driver still has radio. I want to be able to communicate this back to the parents to eliminate phone calls coming into the district as much as possible. So inside of our platform, you have district-wide, school-wide, and route-wide notifications. So an individual run is running late, a school has a water main break, or the entire district is impacted by weather, right? We just got out of the winter season. You can say, hey, we had a 2-hour delay this morning. As soon as you push send notification, I don't know if everyone can see me in the room, but before I pick up my phone and I put it up to my screen up here, you can already see that I got my notification from the busway suite saying that I had a 2-hour delay this morning. Each parent will also get an email just saying, hey, Same exact thing. It was a 2-hour delay at this point. The hope is that if we touch that a few different ways, with technology, that they'll, not fall into the district and know exactly where their buses are. And that brings us to the last piece of this one, which is actually the hardware itself. So on the screen is the tablet on the left. So we have organized stands up, tab active fives, so the military grade. I think in all, it said we have the most tablets in the market through the K-12 space. I think we replaced 5 of these last year. So included in our pricing is unlimited warranties on these devices. If they ever break, we'll replace them for you free of charge. The only language in our contract that we have covers us in case like a driver or a student decided to be, pretty funny and come and steal 40 tablets overnight. That's the only type of piece that we have the language in there. The other piece is going to be on the right side. That's the parent communication side. So if you've ever used Uber before, that's the same technology that we can give to your parents now via the bus ride screen. They can see their bus, their child, their stop, no other information. They follow the bus in live time. They can't see the speed of the bus as well, but it does update as it kind of goes through the motions. If the driver hits a right instead of a left, and that adds 5 minutes, 2 seconds later, you're going to see that this added 5 minutes to their location as well. Another really neat thing that we do is you can send an alert to that bus and every single bus as well. When it's 5 minutes away, based off of the driver behavior, the route that was created, and the GPS that we use, it will automatically ping each parent that the bus is pulling up to their location within the next 5, 7, 10 minutes. You set that parameter. So that'll eliminate a ton of phone calls as well. Lastly, the tablet on the left. So we were the first one in the industry to do this. We learned from our mistakes. We stuffed our knees along as whatever you want to say, but we realized the more that we make your drivers do, the less adoption we have throughout the entire country. So they're hardwired into the bus. They turn the bus on, the tablet automatically turns on. They push one button and one button only. That loads up turn-by-turn navigation, the visuals, the directions, the audible, and when I come to a complete stop like Cameron said, you can also use the NFC cards to tag them on, tag them off, and see all that information directly to the program as well. All right, so that was a ton in a very quick amount of time. So I do want to take it back to you guys, see if there's any questions or how I can still help you, or Cameron, if there's anything else that you want me to share too.
I have a question.
Yep.
If you have a bus that has no internet connection, how can the parent see it in live time?
That was my question too.
Right, so there's two ways you can do this. One is if you go into an area and you know it's a bad area, we have universal SIM cards. So our tablets are the only one in the industry that have universal SIM. So we can work with Cameron very closely. We can have multiple SIM cards on there. So if it does go from AT&T, then it goes to Verizon, then it goes to T-Mobile, we can have those cards on there. So we'll pin back to the software as much as possible.
Thank you.
Anything else for them before I let them go that you all can think of while we have them?
Anything else?
Just thank you, gentlemen, for being with us. We appreciate it.
Awesome. Have a great meeting.
Thank you, sir.
I'm waving, I can't see me.
All right, so just to kind of wrap that up, so obviously that's a lot of information. That would more than likely be like a phased approach if we went that route. Like it would not be an overnight thing. The biggest thing that I did like about their routing standpoint, when he talks about a high level overview, you look at somewhere like Elk Creek where you have kids moving in and out, where you can drag and drop the kids here and there. You can move them, like Global Crossing, for example, is almost a route by itself at the rate that we're going. So you can move them all at one time and adjust your routes district-wide. That is the only system that you can do that. Every other system, you have to manually go to each student and make that work. So as you can imagine, doing all that by hand as we continue to add roads, subdivisions, and students has been a nightmare. So that's kind of what they kind of brought in for us to look at. Any questions on that you all have? Anything that you can think of? Any thoughts at all?
If it works like they say it do.
Yeah.
So
And you have Nelson County.
I have Nelson County to piggyback off of. There are some parts of Nelson County that I wonder, like, does this work or does it not? And it does. So they ping off different cell towers. I think maybe twice they've lost connection overall. And that was way out in parts of Boston, I think he said. There was one route particular. It was right where the bus turned around. It would lose connection for about 4 to 5 seconds. As soon as they turn on, it would pick back up. So kind of you have in your packet or that was in the folder kind of what they sent over for us. So the annual contract value for what they just talked about for the entire suite was $52,000. So that seems like a shocking amount up front. I would tell you they're one of the cheaper ones. After I looked at what we currently pay for Bus Hub, which is the field trip management software, that's $6,300 a year. And then Driver, which hosts our student write-ups, our inspections and stuff like that, was about $2,800. So a little over $9,000 already paying for the two systems that are in place. One thing we had tossed around, we have approved two full-time sub positions for bus drivers that we have not been able to fill. I have not filled those positions since they've been approved. They have went straight into routes, and we've had a full-time vacancy for a portion of the year. So what, in my mind was to reallocate those funds and temporarily just not fill those positions and give this a shot to see if it does make us more efficient. Maybe we could trim a route or two, or maybe we can reallocate them to the best of our ability. As I continue to drive almost every day, having something like this would make me feel more comfortable driving because I'm not spending 12 and 14-hour days here trying to piece it all together. It's kind of where we're at with that. So there won't be any action tonight. I would probably ask for action at the May meeting. Give you all time to think about it. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me and just kind of ponder on it. I am going to Nelson County on Friday to look at their tablets again, now that they've had it for a little over a month, to look at their real live data. It's easier to look at real life stuff than what they show you on the computer.
I mean, I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
This-
and I told him I was up front,
presentation.
like, I said, if you cannot give a presentation like to the board up front, then this is not the company. They were more than willing. They were one of the few. So I think they're very good. They've been very responsive for anything that I've asked for, even development wise, like I want this or I would want that. They've been very responsive, showed me like proof what it could look like in the near future and stuff like that. So they're definitely willing to develop it on an as needed basis.
I
And we'd
think,
be the second Kentucky district.
I think parents would love it. And you have 15 parents that want to know where their child.
Well,
is,
I'll
and
tell
they
you,
get
so it's
all lined up
frustrating.
At the same time.
Real life example, like this morning, we had several call-ins, so everybody was driving. So, parents are calling into the bus garage asking because we have subs on the route, the bus is behind. Well, I'm driving, I can't answer those. It's 6:15 in the morning. So trying to close that communication gap, I think would go a long way because there's only so much you can do while you're trying to drive a route and run the department. So I think that would help us tremendously. We've come a long way, but I think there's a little bit further we could go. So
Looked at any other, while they were talking, I was looking up other ones like easy routing. And some
I
of the
have
other
done
ones.
a total of 17 demos in the last 2.5 months. They were not nearly as user-friendly. So like easy routing, you could only do one route at a time, and you assigned them based on student.
What were their costs?
So they were about 75,000-ish.
All of them?
The most expensive was 200,000. And then it kind of stair-step from there. So Tyler Technologies, who runs Munis, we had Traversa before. They were right around 60-ish, I believe, a year. The difference that I have found is when he talks about leasing the tablets, that they will replace them every 4 years as part of their contract. Where the other companies that are a little bit more, you have to buy those outright every 4 years. That was a little leery to me. Like when we look at the one-to-one initiative, I don't know that we want to sit here and buy brand new tablets every 40 years when we could just replace them on an as-needed basis. So cost-effective wise, when you broke it down, they were actually the cheaper option for what we're looking for that could cover everything. Now, we could piece it together cheaper, but I don't know if that would be the right answer either.
Well, press your ready answer.
Yeah.
Yes, really.
Well, I knew this would be a long
I
process.
just don't want to go with one that JCPS went with.
Well, so I
Whatever
won't
we
name,
do, let's
I
not
won't
go with
name
them.
any names, but we'll see. And I was very honest with them because that was one we have tried before. And I told them like I would do this for 1 year, and if it didn't work, then we were done. Like I wasn't signing a multi-year contract. We were not
just a
doing it.
1 year
Like
just
I'm
to
going to
get
give
the
you your
world.
chance to prove it to me, but I'm not signing. That was the issue we had before. They'll give you this big deal to sign a 5-year contract. And Greg worked, I don't know how many hours to try to get us out of that when I got here because it just didn't work. And that's not the road I wanted to go down, which is what brought us here tonight because I wanted your all's input for sure.
Online, everything while they were going, I was paying attention and looking them up. I mean, Glassdoor, all that kind of stuff. Everything seems legit.
And
So
they sync with
for a
Google
startup
Maps. So
anyway.
anytime that Google updates, they update. Street View, MapWise, anything like that. So it stays updated nonstop. Where a lot of the other ones, you had to actually draw the map for your district yourself. That's not something I want to do either because we're growing quick.
I know we're growing, yet when you think about the routes right now and do you think maybe there is place like where we could, and because you're also talking about a driver shortage.
Yeah.
is there a place where maybe we could get one fewer route that would create
Well,
an
we've
extra
been
driver?
running, we've been running technically without 2 routes already. They just have been there. We've just pushed through the best we can. There was no reason for me to hire somebody, when somebody was gonna be off of medical, stuff like that. So we've already been about a route and a half, 2 routes short. I don't know that we'll cut any more than that, but at least I know that it is doable. The biggest issue right now is our county is so lopsided. So where you used to have a route in Mount Eden that was packed, you don't have that anymore. You have a bus driving 30 minutes for 4 or 5 kids, but in Elk Creek, you have a bus running for 30 minutes that has 67 kids. And there's only so much time that you have between high school, middle school release and elementary release. And that's where this would help a lot. You can drag and drop to make it work with what you do have.
I started to say to the guy when he was on there that I doubt very seriously if they'll save us money on our routings because Cameron's too efficient.
I think we're very efficient the way that we run now. And I would be the first one to tell you, I could make it even more efficient. I don't allow kids to cross the road. And that's not something I'm willing to negotiate on. And that's one thing that this system will play in. Like I can click, I don't want kids to cross the road. And that's the way that it's going to do that route where you couldn't always do that.
But this would free you up.
I think this would make my life a lot.
Other things for the
Correct.
district. And then take up slack.
I think it would shorten my stress level and work days a little bit as I continue to.
Or Shelbyville affected you this last couple?
Yeah, and I just so happened to be the one driving that route. Lucky me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I seen you on the road driving that, I was like, oh
Yeah, I got stuck
man.
there 15 minutes. So yeah, so they're working on drainage ditches right now, and then they're going to re-blacktop that.
So
I don't
this
know.
will probably come in pretty handy.
And it would, and that's the parents that were calling this morning. So they're calling because I'm running 15 minutes late. I can't answer it. So I have my phone set to where when someone calls me, it will read out loud who it is. And that's mainly, so like if it says Kentucky State Police is calling, I know it. And I know it's the same parent calling because it's ringing 3 or 4 times. I can't answer it. So this would help them realize. And one thing with the app, a parent can't track the bus the entire time. So you can set it with a perimeter, like if a bus is within 5 or 10 minutes from the house, then it will tell them that they're within 5 or 10 minutes. So they can't see exactly where they are, because that was one thing I wanted to make certain. Like, I don't want a parent tracking my buses.
Yeah.
Because if they get mad, like, I don't want that. So there's different parameters that we can set, and it's very user friendly from that aspect. And that would definitely be a phased approach to see how that went.
Have you looked into, because we're trying to get everyone to, why did I just draw a blank? On our new app, communication
Yes.
app.
Rooms.
Thank you. I was gonna say Remind, but I was like.
That's what those messages will essentially go from that same aspect. They will almost sync.
Okay, that's
That
what I was.
one
yeah.
non-negotiable for me. Because I use Rooms every day.
You said it will soon.
Yeah, so the same messages that would go through that would just go through Rooms in the same aspect. It's the way that works.
Is there anything you didn't think of?
I don't know. Yeah, you ask a question, I'll tell you if I don't know. I try to cover all my bases before I come up here. Anything else?
No. Appreciate you digging in.
Yeah.
Thanks for
All right, guys, next up is my capstone, and I will try to get through this as efficient as possible. Obviously, each month I have been updating the board on one of the 7 standards, PGP, things like that. But if you guys remember, we had scheduled me to present my capstone in May of this year and then to do my evaluation at the June work session. So you have a hard copy. So you'll have this almost a full month, just a little over a full month before evaluation night, which you didn't get it as early. So page 2 is a note. Did this last year and really wanted to update it, kind of where my mind was, where we are as a district. But beginning with gratitude, I will tell you this job is it will humble you every day. And so I absolutely could not do it by myself. And I think this board and a lot of people in this room, every presentation that you saw this evening took hours and time and conversation. And I'm very appreciative of that. We also have folks in schools that are doing amazing work for kids every single day. The next page gets into the 2 board goals. So the first board goal that this board gave me last June was to not only finish a strategic plan, but to begin to implement that. I will tell you, we are very successful on the finishing side, the implementation side, probably lighter. I have shared with you guys a number of times throughout the course of this year, all the steps that we've done and what's left. If you look at the bottom of this page, really there's 3 things yet to happen. We are going to do a community presentation on May 28th. We will then go to print and publish, and then I'm also presenting it to the chamber in July. So at that point, really, I guess you could say we are truly in implementation phase, but a lot of good work has happened with that. The next page is just an image of our front cover, which you have seen a couple of times. And then the page after that gets into the second board goal. The board charged me and really Ms. Butler with making sure that any academic spotlight that the board heard and our public heard and our community heard was really focused around the profile. So you have some hyperlinks. I will also send this to you electronically, and all those hyperlinks will work. You obviously can't click on them from the page, or you can try. I just don't think it'll take you anywhere. The next page is a professional growth plan. The board charged me with improved communication, so you see some examples and artifacts of specific things that I do from a communication standpoint, to work session focuses, Monday messages, regular board updates, heads ups when there are things that you need to be kind of shared and updated on in real time, communication survey. And then lastly, we talked about the launching of the website, the app, and the Rooms platform. That has not been perfect. But I really think we have dug in and stubbornly worked through some of the important things that needed to be solved. And I think we're landing in a really good spot, if I'm being candid with you. From there, just like every certified person in this county, they're asked to do a reflection and a growth plan and kind of evaluate themselves. And I think I should be treated no differently. So superintendents in Kentucky have 7 standards. The first is called strategic leadership. So you see each of these standards will have basically a short explanation of what the standard is and what it focuses on, followed by key artifacts that I've highlighted with you throughout the year. So you can see the things that I did under strategic leadership, things from leading the strategic planning process, engaging different role groups for that, preparing the board for the plan adoption, communicated a vision on opening day. That's something that's been very important to me both years that I've been here. A leadership retreat where we take our instructional coaches, assistant principals, counselors, principals, district folks, and we go to a spot and really focus on things and make sure we're ready for the year. And then collaborating with the board on board goals. I've already got some ideas for next year, so excited about that. Standard 2, I would argue any superintendent, any principal, our most important job is to be an instructional leader. So you can see there on the next page some things that I have done under Standard 2. Leading PLC work has been a great focus of ours. Our district team and school teams have done a fantastic job with that. We did a couple of book studies this year. I dug in with our high school folks to look at CERT a little more deeply and what tools are within CERT to use. Principals and their growth planning has been something that has been important to me that I take the time to spend with them both in the fall, the spring, and when it's time for their summative evaluation. Instructional site visits. I really try to push and lean on principals to grow instructionally, and they certainly have. The lead HQ hour should be its own line, so that's a little bit of a typo, but that was a lift Ms. Butler and I did together last year. That was fun with a capital F, but we got through it, and I think we have landed in a good spot throughout the course of this year. Defining instructional non-negotiables. One of the things that's been important to me is if we hire somebody in Spencer County, we can show them, tell them, talk to them about the way we do things. So that's come to life through what we call a roadmap, which has been very beneficial not only for us, but for our school teams as well. Ms. Butler actually got the chance to show that with our district instructional leadership team, and I think it was very much appreciated is the word that I would use. Implemented role group meetings. Everything we talk about here and in this room is great, but if it does not transition to schools and school teams, it's for nothing. And so the time that we have with our coaches, with assistant principals, with counselors, et cetera, if those things aren't meaningful, it is, again, all for nothing. Cultural leadership. I think we have an amazing culture in Spencer County, but it is something that is always a work in progress, and we can always work on and focus on and get better. So you see the list of things that I've done there for cultural leadership. You see a little bit of redundancy, but also some cool stuff that we've been able to pull off. Human resource leadership. This has been a challenging year in HR. We had a long-term human resources director. We reorganized the department, are working on things like digitizing our hiring and evaluation documents and processes. We've been to multiple job fairs, principal meetings, site visits, consult with legal counsel quite often, almost on a daily and weekly basis. I wish that were less, no offense, Mr. Chenoweth, but you know how that works. Standard 5, managerial leadership. We are blessed with amazing operations leaders in this district. Financial work sessions, tonight was a great example. RSA coming to talk to us about bonding, so on and so forth, making sure that our financial audit is public and transparent and folks get to see that. It seems tedious, but it's important. Directed budget planning, obviously I've probably not directed that. I've learned and ridden Mr. Murphy's coattails, but he has been a great resource and learning partner for me with that. Secured 5% salary increase for this school year, 2% for next year. Communication, again, meeting structures, evaluating programs and personnel, always looking for efficiencies and ways to improve. Formed an operations team, that's probably a little dramatically worded, but maybe evolved from formerly known as program directors to operations, and that group has been a pleasure to work with. Leading construction projects, I will tell you that is time that I was not prepared for. That has been a learning curve for me and something that takes a lot of time, but is very important at the same time. Advanced ELC and community facilities. So a lot of good things going on there. And then obviously that website and app, phone app has been fun and many other things at the same time. Collaborative leadership. I serve on 3 different boards, I think, OVEC, Education Foundation, and our Chamber of Commerce. I work closely with Fiscal Court and our city. Kentuckiana Works is a new partner this year, somebody that Ms. Slaughter works with closely. The creation of our PAX lab at the middle school. And then obviously I'm charged with leading both the core academic team and the operations team. And last but not least, influential leadership, as I shared with the board last year, probably my greatest learning curve in year 1. You don't get into this job to do political things, but you have to do political things if you want to survive, and work with people sometimes outside of your comfort zone or your circle of influence, as they say. So a lot of advocating through things like OVEC and KASA, working with our local leaders, business partners, policy review, getting into the weeds for the first time. Right now, I'm facilitating principal hiring. I did that last year when we selected Ms. St. Bernard next door at the ELC, and she's done a fabulous job, by the way. Engaged in other leadership boards, growth planning and site visits with principals, and again, that recruitment piece is super important. So some things that I would ask that we give some thought to next year and moving forward. I really think it's time for Spencer County to dig into the local accountability piece. I know Dr. Shelburne brought us back some information about that, and maybe flesh out some steps to make that become a reality. Letters implementation. We have begun to have a conversation in our district around what's known as the science of reading. I argue that we are entering a season in education where the fundamental things are going to matter. And for us to double down on those things, not chase shiny new toys, not look for the next thing to purchase, but to make sure that we're doing things and executing them correctly. Advance our strategic plan so you can kind of see the next steps for that. We have if you didn't know, we have a lot of facility things going on. I have challenged Mr. Rucker to land lots of planes in the next few months, and he is doing a great job with that. As we noted earlier, to recruit and onboard a new chief financial officer. And then we are going to have some new leaders in our district. As you know, we currently have a principal search going on at Spencer County Middle School. We are actually interviewing this week. And Hillview Academy will also have a new alternative programs coordinator. So a lot of things need to happen. I end with a quote, which I think is awfully important for me and this board. It's a Stephen Covey quote. You have to decide what your highest priorities are and have the courage, pleasantly, smilingly, and not apologetically, to say no to other things. And the way you do that is by having a bigger yes burning inside. So I love that quote. Just wanted to share it with you. So that, folks, is my capstone. I know that Ms. Clevenger will be giving you over the next few days or weeks a document to rate me, and I think that'll come to life in June. So wanted to get that to you. I'll also share this with you electronically.
Michelle was nice enough, because I forgot that I was home for an hour this afternoon, forgot to print them off.
Yeah.
Michelle did it like that.
Awesome.
So they all have a copy, and you have a full month to doodle on it, and whatever, you could just send me your scores that week before the
And what
action.
day is that again? I'm sorry.
June 10th.
June 10th, yes.
So that one's weird. We have work session on the 10th and a regular meeting on the 17th.
Right.
So June is.
So-
We were working around that.
I think both
Yes,
Tuesdays.
yes, me. Because I won't be back until.
What's that, Mr. Bell?
Are those both Tuesdays?
Yes, sir, they are.
Uh-oh, okay.
I'll try to make that work.
Okay.
There's no guarantee on that one.
I'm scheduled to be out.
And I think years ago, you used to fill out, comments and everything, and we put it in. But I think now that the board wants just the scores, I
Yes.
compile the scores, do that. And then
We
when we get
talk.
together and
Yeah.
talk, we'll come up there on the spot. I'll try to bring my computer so I can type it in and get it done. And you might want to think too about, this is at the working session, and we could wait to present to the public and have that discussion at the regular session night.
Oh,
Or,
I see, because the agenda can't be,
I mean, we could do that afterwards. It's, if I can get it all typed up
right.
and set, out in time to present it. So think about that. We have time to make that decision.
And Sandy, just to refresh my memory, so we'll go back into closed session. Dr. Foster will come back with us for
Yeah.
questioning or
We
not?
usually, we go in on our own,
Okay,
and then we have all our discussions working, and then we'll bring them in.
okay, after, before
Yes.
we do the presentation?
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
and then we'll talk it through to get everything concrete. And then whether we present it that night or at the regular board meeting, we'll work that out by the next board meeting. Does that sound okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yep, okay with everybody?
Yes.
Okay.
One other thing, not superintendent evaluation or presentation worthy, but I've met with the folks here in this building. As you guys know, we're getting into heavy lifting season on the progress of the cafeteria next door.
Yes.
And then next door behind us with the yellow house and the parking. So I would say the 2 months that could affect board education meeting business could be June and July. So I've met with
Right.
Churchill McGee and talked to them about that, and basically asked them to give me at least a couple of weeks' notice if there's any meeting that they're worried that, whether it be noise or door entrances or safety, to let us know that we could move a meeting, but it needs to have plenty of notice, and we would have to make a special call meeting. So I would predict the 2 months that would be the most possible would be June and July. So if that comes up, if that's a need, right now, I think we're on the same page and it'll be okay. There will be some work done on that side with some storm drainage. Most of the site work will be done behind us, and obviously the EOC, they're really getting into it. So,
It was even busy tonight
yes,
coming in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and it's going to pick up.
Yeah.
It's going to pick up.
That's exciting.
Yes, it is exciting.
Okay, you ready to move on to action with discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Approval of the Tiger Cub Village rates, we've already had that presentation. So I think I'll say, Dr. Foster, you have recommendations?
Yeah, so I would just highlight to you what you have copied there for you with that is basically the grid that Mr. Russell and Ms. St. Bernard put together for you. What is most pressing tonight would be approving, it would be the break weeks. So that would be the summer time. Other than that, the tuition, if you need more time, we can do that. I think it's time for that program to grow. I think it's that time for that program to evolve. I think these prices are very much competitive, if not better, with the partners in the county, and it adds opportunities for families in Spencer County. So my recommendation would be to approve the proposed 25-26 tuition rates for Tiger Cub Village Child Care Program as presented.
I didn't give you a chance to, in case you came up with any questions or comments after the presentation. That was big. There was none. If not, do I have a motion as stated?
I'll make the motion as stated.
And this is to approve the entire
Yes, ma'am.
Great.
Yes, I was right. Glenn, do I have a second?
I will second.
Tim, all in favor? Unanimous? Okay, let's move on to B, policy revision 3.122 holidays/vacation days certified, first reading.
So this is only a first reading, so no action is needed tonight. I don't know if we vote to approve it as that, but, so if you look there on the second page, it's a little cleaner than the copy that was in the other packet, so you can see what would now land in policy 3.12. You can see anything that's underlined there is new. So again, our goal is to clean up leave time and to take out the vacation day verbiage.
And this policy is Spencer County specific. You know, we get a lot of policies in from the state, but this one
That's correct.
has been drafted by us and.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and your recommendation is to approve this.
Take under consideration the first reading for revisions to policy 03.122.
Is there a motion to approve first reading?
Yes.
Jason, is there a second?
Second.
Lynn? All of those in favor? Unanimous? Let's move on to approval of administrative pay scale change.
Yeah, so this is the other part of the same conversation, same presentation, but it's to take those 7 positions from 250-day contracts to 240. These administrators are responsible for the operation of their departments or schools every day of the year, regardless of the number of contracted days. To keep their salaries at a consistent level, the responsibility factors for each position is proposed to increase by 5%. The overall impact of these changes is a savings of approximately $200. So that's even better than I said.
Is there a motion as stated?
Yes, recommend the proposed classified and certified administrative pay scale revisions for the 25-26 fiscal year as presented.
Do I have a motion as stated?
I have a question, quick
Yes.
question. Can we approve the pay scale if the policy's not official yet?
Well, we talked about that last month. We could, but I didn't want to do it with at least talking to you guys about the policy part. So, we can hold that until June if you want to, Mr. Truitt, but I think we're safe to do that.
The policy revision and the pay scale, given the time of both coming to play beginning July 1st. So doing one now, the other, one takes 2 readings, one only takes 1, so they would both come into effect at the same time in July 1st.
There you go.
So
So if you wanted to, we could certainly table that one and approve it in June either way.
We're gonna have action-packed time, so if we can get things off the list, let's get it off the list.
All right.
We would also remove that recommendation of reference to class of. Initially, they were going to be brought.
Together. So my recommendation is the proposed certified administrator pay scale. Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Murphy. So strike the words classified and.
All right. Do I have, or you have any questions?
Nope. I'll make the motion as revised.
Okay, as with my, perfect.
I'll second.
Okay, Jason seconds. Tim made the motion, Jason second, all in favor? Unanimous? Okay. It's 7:17, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll second.
You know, we're on it.
Jason,
You know it.
make the motion, Lynn second, all in favor? Unanimous? Oh, and I didn't even make a formal goodbye. We're gonna miss you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll miss you all.
If you hadn't looked yet, I set mine out.
Awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you very
It
much.
was really,
Thank
thank you.
The world.
Graduation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I still
See
may
y'all there.
redshirt you. I still may redshirt you.
Uh-oh.
We can do it. We can do it. I'll be at Louisville, only a couple minutes.